Hi, welcome to Pause Uni's For Students by Students podcast. I'm your host, Nola, and in this podcast we have student-led conversations about mental and emotional health. In this episode, Beverly, one of our practitioners at Pause Uni, and Alice have a discussion about low mood and how it can seriously impact the life of students at university. Listen up, and I really hope you get something.
Hi there, my name's Beth.
I'm Alice.
And today we're going to be speaking about low mood. So we're going to go through some of the signs and symptoms of low mood, things that we can do to identify our triggers, and some coping skills that we can use just to get us through the day.
Yeah, so I'm a student at the moment. I'm in my final year, and I think it's fair to say I've had my fair share of low mood moments. I think it does come and go in waves, so I expect that's something that we'll talk about as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in terms of low mood, what we think about is low mood being a temporary state. So it's something that hopefully, like the weather, should come and go. We can have our highs and lows. It's just about how we can manage it on any given day and what support we can get to help us through that day.
So in terms of, I guess what low mood is, it's typically quite a temporary sadness, maybe anxiety, stress around things that are going on in your life. But I think it's also important to note that sometimes you might just feel low and there isn't necessarily any cause of that.
Yeah, and I think that's a brilliant thing to pick up on. I think sometimes, especially when people are feeling low, they feel that there has to be a reason behind it, and that is not necessarily that case. You could wake up in the morning and feel that way, and it could be a lack of sleep, or a lack of food. So it could be literally anything that has taken you from feeling good to not feeling so great.
Yes.
So Alice, you just said a little while ago that you've had times where you've had low mood. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite a common occurrence. I think I genuinely think of myself as quite a kind of happy person, but I don't think that goes without saying that we all get low. And I think being at university, when there's the mix of kind of pressures of exams and deadlines, and then there's also that loneliness when you're kind of struggling to make friends, or when you're sort of going through periods of grief and having to navigate that without sort of the support networks that you've always had at home and things like that. I think low mood is just something that is part of the sort of ebb of life. Yeah.
And have you found it easy to speak about, maybe with your flatmates, or going to find support from somewhere?
Yeah, I think finding people that you feel comfortable talking to about those things can be a real game changer. Because I think one thing about low mood that I find personally, and I think other people can probably relate to, is that feeling of getting low, getting low, and then not really knowing how to work your way out of it. And sometimes you can feed that feeling, but I think as soon as you connect with people, as soon as you sort of get out the house, go for a walk, look after yourself, and acknowledge that you're feeling low and that that's okay, and normalizing it, I think I always personally feel a lot better at that point.
I think it's a struggle, because it's a struggle for a lot of people to, I don't even necessarily think recognise that they have low mood, but be able to accept that they have low mood, because if you're in an environment, you're supposed to be happy and everything's supposed to be great and life is wonderful, but the struggle for some young people is real. What sorts of things have you done? I know you talked about going for walks and stuff and maybe connecting with people, but in those times where there is no one that you can talk to, are there other things that you've tried to do?
Yeah, I think the lack of people always makes it a lot harder. And definitely trying to motivate yourself out of that hole is a lot harder. But I think I personally just turn to all of those, as cliche as it sounds, all of those sort of self-care, self-love things. I love a warm shower to wash the day away. I think that's always a real mood booster for me. And things just like eating well always really changes how I'm feeling. And trying to have a positive outlook, trying to be grateful for the things in my life. And even though it can be hard in those times, making a real effort to look for the good.
And I think self-care is something that I think we all need to be more conscious of. It's a difficult thing. And I guess that when you guys are really busy and it's exam time and revision time, it's not something that you think about per se. But how about you? Do you actively put self-care into your day?
I think you're completely right. I think it's one of those things that we don't really prioritize enough. And I think especially at those really busy periods where you feel like work should be your priority, it's really easy to not put it first. But I think those are obviously the times when you need to try and put it first. And I think for me, and I know I've had a conversation with my housemates about it before, where you get so worked up about all this stuff you've got to do that you then take away from yourself. And then you feel guilty looking after yourself because you feel guilty putting that time towards you when you feel like you should be putting it towards your studies. But I think it's really important to remember that obviously being a student is really important, and whatever people have going on in their lives, whatever goals they're working towards are really important. But you are the most important factor in all of that. So if you're not looking after yourself, then you probably won't do as well as you want to do anyway, and you just really have to prioritize you when you're feeling low.
I think it's a challenge for everyone. I think within speaking to students as well, it's something. There is an expectation that when you've come to uni that you're an adult, so you should be able to do all of these things. And sometimes it's almost like that needs to be part of your curriculum.
Yeah.
Self-care is huge. Let's make sure that our students are also prioritising self-care as much as they would their exams, their studies, all of that type of thing.
Yeah.
Is that something that you feel would be really important in terms of university life and how people structure that?
Yeah, hugely. I think you just made a really good point about this idea that when you come to university, you are suddenly entirely in control of your own life, when prior you always had your parents or guardians looking after you. And I think we really underestimate the pressure of that. I think you get to university and suddenly you have to cook for yourself, you have to clean, you have to make sure that you get out of bed in the morning, you have to eat the right food, do the right amount of exercise, and that can feel like a lot. And I think sometimes it's okay to just take a step back from that and say, okay, even if I don't do this or that, at least I'm looking after me. And I think it is a really crucial thing that we sort of go into uni life knowing logically on paper how we're meant to go about it and how we're meant to be independent, and we kind of completely forget about the whole self-love aspect.
I think that's one of the struggles that I think even either whether from a professional perspective or from a parenting perspective, you get to a point where you think, okay, children are a certain age, they should be able to do these things and get these things, and these are all skills, and as adults we've had to learn them as well. So the assumption that a student should just know it, maybe there's something, I don't know, within the home environment that maybe it could be part of a conversation with parents, or maybe as part of inductions when parents come with you, that this is something so that even from home people are making sure that you're doing your self-care at uni as well.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think obviously the whole conversation around mental health is getting way better, and we're talking about it a lot more, which is incredible. But I think we still haven't learned how to have that conversation about the kind of minor mental health aspects. And I think low mood is one of those things where just having that conversation in the house and not being sort of not shying away from that conversation is really important. Just to acknowledge that it happens and it's really, really normal. But that you have to figure out your own way to sort of cope with that, and working through those ideas with other people can be really helpful.
I think it's hard as well because I think the term mental health, if you think, okay, it's low mood, and I'm not just not feeling great, and that's great, but mental health almost puts it to another level for some people.
Yeah.
And so they struggle with, well, it's the mental health, but I've got low mood. And it is, and I think you're absolutely right. It is about being able to have those conversations and have those conversations openly. And quite often we would talk about emotional well-being. That seems to figure a lot safer in a lot of people's support when you're talking about, because mental health almost takes it to the extreme. So emotional health, self-care, and I think self-care even in itself sounds like a big thing. So you even break that down to like a bite-sized chunk. So sometimes we might say listen to music, but we might say listen to a song.
Yeah.
It could be the song on repeat, that song on repeat. It could be, go for a walk. But it might just be go and open your front door and look at the sun. So it can be just like really bite-sized. I think sometimes people scare that if I've got to do self-care, I've got to put all these actions in place.
Yeah.
So sometimes it only has to be one thing.
No, absolutely. I think just baby steps is huge. And I think we should all kind of really celebrate those small wins, because like you say, even just sort of listening to a song, or taking a step outside, or even just looking out the window and seeing what's going on outside is a really massive thing when you're feeling low.
Yeah, I think everybody's got to find their self-care
Absolutely.
item or topic or thing that they like to do, and in terms of that, and it doesn't have to be what people might perceive as self-care. It can be absolutely anything. It might be going and looking at some frogs.
Yeah.
It might be watching a crazy cat video, or just anything that just sorts of almost has that trigger in your head of, I wasn't feeling so great, feeling a little better now.
Yeah.
Might not have changed anything, but I think my mindset's turning a little, and I think that is huge for students to be able to feel like, even if I'm only taking a few minutes out for myself, I've done a little bit of self-care for myself today.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think it's really important. And I think, like you say, it's really good to know what your sort of mood boosters are, even if you don't sort of end up completely getting rid of that feeling. As long as you can sort of figure out the things that will make you smile for a second, or just slightly shift that mindset, I think that's a really beneficial thing to spend time trying to figure out.
Yeah, I think so, because I think sometimes the stressors can take over
Yeah.
your life, and obviously there are things which we talked about earlier of having to navigate certain things in uni life, like finances, exams, the social life, all sorts of different things that just will sort of happen on a daily, weekly basis. And then when that all compounds, and then exams and revision and all of that time comes into it, it's almost like your head will explode.
Yeah.
And then self-care gets lost.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there's a way that students could support each other at those moments where they're all struggling, and you might see that somebody's not their best today? Is there a way that they could go and speak to someone, or just have that little check-in and just say, there's a little thing you can do? Do you think that's something that students would do or would think about doing?
Yeah, I think so. I think we all want a human connection at the end of the day. I think it's something that we can all get something from. And I think sometimes we're just a bit too shy or a bit too scared to ask for help or say that we're not doing our best. But there's this book by, oh, I can't remember his name, Charlie Mackesy, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse. And it's gorgeous. It's such a beautiful book. I would highly recommend it to anybody. But one of the quotes in it, the boy asks the horse, "What's the bravest thing you've ever done?" And the horse replies, saying, "Help." And I just think that's so gorgeous, because we are too scared to ask for help, and it does take a lot of courage to say, "I'm actually feeling really low or stressed or anxious at the moment." But I think if we made it something that students felt more comfortable talking about, then we absolutely would, because I think we want to. We just don't know how. And I think taking small steps, like we were saying earlier, just talking to someone you feel really close with and comfortable with and safe with, starting there and just saying, "Can I just have this open conversation with you? I'm not feeling my best." And that is still a really scary thing, but I think the more we have the courage to do it, the easier it gets, and then the easier it becomes to talk to other people who can maybe offer you better support.
So you talked as well about sort of some of the things that you sort of done when you've not been feeling great, like eating healthily and
Yeah.
and just being able to go out for fresh air. Is that something that you've had a discussion with already with other people about how that keeps you healthy?
Yeah, I mean, one of my housemates, she absolutely loves the outdoors, and I knew that about her. So when I was feeling quite low and I just wanted to be outside, but I also kind of didn't want to be on my own, I just asked her if she wanted to go for a walk, knowing that she would say yes, because that's something that she enjoys. And so we went on this walk, and I just kind of said thank you so much, because I just was not having a good day and I just really needed to get out of the house and touch some grass. And she was so lovely about it. And now it's sort of become our thing. When one of us isn't feeling great, we'll just go for a walk, even if it's just around the houses in Selly Oak, or if we want to go a little bit further and go and find a lake or go to the Vale or something like that. But I think breaking that initial barrier, people then know your symptoms. Sounds a bit dramatic, but they know how to tell when you need that thing that they can offer.
Mm. I think that's really important, because sometimes you feel that you need to have a physical sign that
Yeah.
somebody's not feeling great, and sometimes it's just from within, it's just not a great feeling. But I think it's great that you recognise in yourself that I need some self-care. I also have someone that I know can help support me in my self-care. And I think, like you said, the human connection is huge.
Yeah.
And it's about how we can make sure that as many students as possible are able to recognise that there are little pockets of places that we can find self-care. It can be within our own accommodation, it might be on our course with somebody that's like-minded. But if you were thinking that somebody might struggle, is there anywhere else that you might think about signposting them to get support and help?
Yeah, I mean, on a kind of small scale, I think joining societies and sports clubs is can be really, really helpful. And I'm saying that from someone who has never really found my people in these things. I try new things out every term, and I'm not very good at new social situations. I'm quite good one-on-one, but as soon as I'm in a big group, I get a bit nervous. But I've come to realise that people don't always find their people in these societies and these clubs and these groups. It's more just that people are there because it gives them an option and an opportunity to get off of their phones, get out the house, and just have a chat and a laugh with someone. And so I would definitely recommend finding a community in whatever way that looks like for you, whether it's joining university society or something different. Like you say, kind of finding people in your accommodation or on your course. You don't have to be best buddies. And I think there's a sort of expectation that you do, but you really don't, because we're all there for the same reason.
And I think self-care is one of those things. It's like you said, going to the gym. You may never see those people again,
Yeah.
but you may be in a class or something, and the energy of that room has just made you feel better.
Absolutely.
So you may not know someone's name, but my mood has lifted.
Yeah.
I think that's huge and really important.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it can be a real sort of a changing point in your outlook on your emotions. That feels a bit circular, but I think once you realise that sort of energy that you can get from other people, when you don't have that energy yourself, just being around others can sometimes fuel that for you and give you that little ounce of energy that you are struggling with.
And I think the other things that I would ask about as well, because I think sometimes when people are feeling low, they feel they should be snapping themselves out of it. Like, do you know what's the matter with you?
Yeah.
You're in a great environment. You know, life should be wonderful. Is there anything that you would sort of be able to say to help people when that mindset is just still going around saying, well, I just don't feel right. I don't feel well.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about it. It's my fault. I should know what to do. Is there anything that you could tell?
I think we all do that, would be my first thing. I would say, don't feel guilty about feeling guilty, because I think sometimes you can spiral when you start feeling bad about feeling low. You can then feel bad about feeling bad, and it becomes this really kind of sort of toxic circular thing. But I think just giving yourself some grace is a huge part of all of this sort of self-love we've been talking about. I think just being easy on yourself, because none of us are really as self-compassionate as I think we should be. And it's a lot easier said than done, I would say, sort of giving yourself that compassion. But I think it is a really good starting point if, when you do notice that you're caught up in those feelings of, I don't know how to get out of this, I'm feeling really low and I don't really know what to do and I don't know how to change it and I feel really bad about it. Just acknowledging that you're feeling that way and saying, it's okay, this is normal, and it won't be forever, it's just temporary, and it's okay to feel low right now, and there's no need to beat myself up for that. I think that's a really, really great starting point, just giving yourself some grace.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely fab, and it would be amazing that if we could get that message across to everyone. I think that would be absolutely so huge, so that people don't always feel alone in that they do feel like it is okay.
Yeah.
And we don't have great days, and we don't always have great days, but we have to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that is absolutely huge.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think being in the culture that we're in, where there's this kind of, you always need to be productive and you always need to be working on the next big thing, it's maybe more important than ever to just be kind to yourself.
Yeah. That sounds just absolutely really important and so amazing. So in having this conversation now, I mean, I think one of the hopes would be that obviously this is a long-lasting podcast. So for, say, the next year of uni students who would come in, or it's your final year, the second year, being able to deliver that message if you saw someone around not feeling so great, or at least saying, oh, there's a podcast on low mood, you can go and have a listen, or there's a podcast on, many different areas that
Yeah.
we see that you're not feeling so wonderful.
Yeah,
or just take someone aside for a coffee and have a chat.
exactly. I think all of those initiatives are just so important, because it's good to know when you are feeling low that you're not the only one. And I know we all say that all the time, but it's really true. I think you said something earlier about when you feel like you should be happy, and so you kind of act all happy, and we all do it. But I think it's important to remember that just because someone seems like they're having the time of their life, we really all do have lows and dips, and it's important to remember that and look out for other people in those times. So, as we're coming up to the end of our chat, what do you think that would benefit students most in their day-to-day lives of kind of getting over this hump of low mood?
So I think for me, I think it would be them knowing that there are places they can go and people they can talk to when they're not feeling great. And I think it's not about feeling that you have to wait to feel really bad before you get support. I think, like we said earlier, starting with your housemates and that type of thing. But there are places where you can go and have a chat. There are lots of numbers, checking out the intranet, and just being able to say, it's okay. I don't feel great, but I know I can get support, and I think that is huge.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. I myself have used so many of the different uni services, and everyone, including yourself, they're all such lovely people, and I think it's important to remember that they are there just to listen and to chat when you're feeling low. And like you say, you don't need to be sort of experiencing an emergency to go to those services and ask for that support.
That's wonderful to know. So from myself, Bev, and from
Alice,
it was lovely to spend time with you.
What a great and informative conversation with Bev and Alice. I really hope you got something, because I think that was gold, if you ask me. Now, if anything in that conversation triggered you, then I suggest you go and have a conversation with your university wellbeing officers. If they are currently unavailable, then perhaps you want to get in touch with Samaritans or Papyrus or any other national intervention service. I'm sure they will be on hand to support and help you with anything that you need. Now, hold right there, because we've got another episode coming right up. Thanks.